Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure what time it is. I'm in Ghana at the moment, so I'm assuming it's mid-morning-ish. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not very good on time zones. Thank you for having me, to the organisers. It's nice to be back in Mauritius, even if it is only virtually. I'll be back in a couple of weeks in person, though, so I'm happy about that. So thank you for letting me speak today. An interesting few years we've had, I guess, from when I first started looking at regulatory and policy frameworks, one of the first places was actually Mauritius many, many years ago. The world has really moved on. So back in the late 17, 18 and 19, the only things we really needed to worry about were cryptocurrencies. We looked at Bitcoin, we looked at Ethereum and the odd initial coin offering. That was that. And today, move fast forward until 2023. We have a variety of new things to be worrying about and to be excited about at the same time. So we've seen, I guess, over the last decade, this myriad and this mishmash and this colliding force, I guess, of things like blockchain, Web3, layer 2 solutions on top of Web 2 solutions, the metaverse, cryptocurrencies, non-fungible tokens, decentralized finance and stablecoins. And I know that's a lot to take in, but in a way, everything is interrelated and correlated. So the metaverse, as Jane said, it's just not one metaverse. There's thousands of metaverse. They can be closed, they can be opened, depending on who's building it. The metaverse that Mark Zuckerberg is building is certainly not decentralized, so he's got a private metaverse. But then there are thousands of people building on top of Web3, Web 2 layer, Web3 layer solutions now, which offer decentralized metaverses. Now, the interesting thing is, I guess, with all these technologies and all these new assets, and the thing that we've seen that's probably the most exciting over the last decade, and what the internet gave us, its ability to not only share information, it's the ability to share value. So the internet was static. Web 1, Web 2 is what we call static. We could share information, but we couldn't share or transfer value across these open systems. Today we can do that, and that's very, very powerful. So that's exactly where the metaverse fits in. It's taken me a while to grapple with myself in the metaverse. I find it very hard living in this world, let alone having a digital twin of mine that wants to live in another world. But then again, I'm only one very small of a demographic. There are many people that have digital twins. Gaming's been around for a really long time. Gaming's been around for the last 60 years. I think the first ever virtual reality game was constructed in 1960. Fun fact there. But where we sit today, people do want to have an ability to interact in the real world and in the metaverse. And we're seeing business models grow out of that. And we're seeing all sorts of interesting innovation being driven by the availance now of these new technology. AI certainly has increased that as well, but certainly the adoption of Web3 in the last 6 months. But as always, what happens with technology and new business models, there comes a lot of innovation and a lot of reward, but a lot of risk. So in my day-to-day life, and I continue to do it in this world as well as the second world, I look at writing regulation and policies, and that also includes the metaverse, because we can't have a lawless lawless metaverse where anybody can do anything with no recourse. That certainly wouldn't be good for humanity, either here or there. So what we're seeing is standards starting to develop. What do standards look like? A lot of it is, yes, taken from what we see in the real world, but we're seeing standards being developed, we're seeing regulatory frameworks being developed, especially on the lines of where there's transactions. So anything that's a financial product or involves somebody selling one product for another, it involves a financial transaction and a financial product. And also standards in the way that we share information with each other, because there's a lot of problems that we will see. Say, for instance, you've got a head device that's letting you get into the metaverse. What if the person that builds that head device has corrupted it in some way and is able to get into your cognitive thinking and to make you think things that you wouldn't normally think? So we've got to worry about things like that. We worry about data IP. We worry about the bad guys who do bad things in this world doing just as much bad in the virtual world. And that's got to a stage so much that I had a conversation maybe a month ago with Interpol. Interpol rang me up and said, "Oh, Loretta, we've got all these money launderers in the metaverse. What do we do?" And I said, well, we better start looking at having proper regulatory frameworks around what that looks like. So Interpol now have an office in the metaverse, which I thought was what is a very taying moment when you're seeing law enforcement go into these environments. So we have to make sure that consumers and investors are protected. We have to make sure that money launderers and terrorists and bad people can't do terrible things to people. We've got a number of instances at the moment where we're seeing quite a large uptake in things like child pornography, and that's not good. So a lot of the law enforcement guys globally are working together to mitigate that. We're seeing a lot of people try and launder money through the metaverse because they go into one system, say they're buying a piece of land on decentralized land. They go in, they buy some McDonald's, they do other stuff, and then they exit the metaverse with another token. So they're finding ways to launder money and not be traced. So that's high on the agenda of the standard setters to make sure that we can track and trace all people that are using these new systems for nefarious activities. And then we also have the issues of consumer and investor protection. How do we protect people if they've just bought a piece of land, or they've bought a shop, or they've bought something in the metaverse and they don't get it? So there's a whole lot of rules and regulations that we can actually apply from the real world and put into this new world as well. So it's not all bad, but we do need new policies around things like data protection. That's the one thing I see that we haven't done particularly well in this world with virtual assets. So things like data protection and how do we protect people when the data is in another place, not a jurisdiction, is going to be very interesting in the next few months. And of course, everything that is transacted in the metaverse is not done with cash or money, fiat currency as you know it. It's done with a digital asset. So, how do we ensure that the digital assets that are being used to purchase or to sell things is clean money, or in fact it exists at all? It's just not been some token that somebody's gone and created and then ran away with. So all the problems that we see sort of around digital assets and virtual assets at the moment, these things are transacting through into the metaverse, and they have to be solved. But that's on the negative side. On the positive side, I think it's really interesting times that we will be able to solve so many problems. As Jane pointed out to you, the use cases around supply chain management, health, people finding new jobs and new ways to make livings, new entrepreneur ways that we haven't even thought about at all ever in history, new asset classes is all very, very exciting. But it takes time. Things are in motion. I chair the regulatory and policy arm of the World Metaverse Council. We're in talks at the moment with a number of governments, including the European Union, on coming out with a template for adoption around regulatory frameworks in the metaverse. I've also in talks with the Commonwealth. So there are large jurisdictions and large groups of jurisdictions that are all seeing the importance of this and how big the impact will be of things like the metaverse by 2030. So we're all coming together to help rewrite some of the rules that make it a fair and equitable place to live, to transact, and to be another world. So thank you very much.